Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for Horsepower. You may notice that we have set up a little bit differently today since we are in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. We've decided to conduct our interviews remotely to allow for social distancing as well as the safety of our participants. Good afternoon. Welcome to Horsepower. We are with Aaron Crady today, the Executive Director of the Thoroughbred Charities of America. And Aaron, I went through some tough times right now with the COVID-19. Before we get into a little bit of an interview to conduct on what is happening in the thoroughbred industry, can you give us a little bit about your background and what currently the position you have entails?
Sure. I work for Thoroughbred Charities, as you mentioned, Thoroughbred Charities of America. We're a nonprofit organization headquartered here in Lexington, Kentucky. I've been with the organization going on 10 years now, so quite some time. We're a lean and mean organization. We are a staff of 2, governed by a board of 17, very involved and wonderful individuals from the thoroughbred industry. But TCA is a 30-year-old organization. We've been around for quite some time, and we are a grant-making organization. So what we do on an annual basis, even during a normal year, is we provide funding via grants to approved charities throughout the country. So it's an organization that serves many different audiences within the thoroughbred industry.
Now, I noticed you seem very young.
Thank you.
What was your background prior to getting into the Thoroughbred Charities of America?
My first job here in Kentucky, I'm actually from New York, so I relocated to Kentucky, and my first job here in the Bluegrass was with the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association, which is essentially the parent company of TCA. TCA is the charitable arm of TOBA. So my work with TOBA was as the Director of Marketing and Communications. So I was in that role for quite some time. And then when TCA became legally the charitable arm of TOBA in 2009, I was actually splitting my time between the 2 organizations, doing the TCA Executive Director work as well as the TOBA Marketing Director work. And shortly thereafter, it became quite apparent that each organization needed their own person, so I kind of jumped over to the TCA side. But prior to my work with TOBA, I spent a little time in Florida working for an advertising agency, focusing on the Florida Department of Health and some media buying and account management for them. Prior to that, I worked in marketing, communication, sales for internet companies in New York, in New York City.
It's impressive. How does a New Yorker end up in the Bluegrass?
You know, I grew up riding horses. I grew up riding hunter jumpers. The last horse I owned was an off-the-track thoroughbred, and that was well before I had any connection to the thoroughbred industry. So it's been, I'm very lucky to be able to blend, my hobby with my profession. So, as they say, Lexington is the horse capital of the world, and I tend to agree.
I'm sure in the profession that you're in, I mean, the COVID-19 has impacted the thoroughbred industry, and it's here especially, I know in West Virginia, but New York, it's been well documented what has happened there, as well as Kentucky. Can you expound on that a little bit, and what COVID-19 has really done to the industry as a whole?
Yeah, looking at it from TCA's perspective, and we focus on our grant recipients there in the industry, serving both the backstretch community as well as the thoroughbreds. The first thing that we did when COVID kind of hit us in early March was we reached out to all of our grant recipients. And last year we had 64 across the country, and said, tell us what's going on. Are you guys okay? What do you need? And on the aftercare side, it seemed to be, they were kind of staying the course for the most part. But where we saw the most need was on the backstretch side. You had racetracks closing down and backstretch populations still there at the racetracks. So we actually were able to support a few organizations with an emergency grant for needs like food pantries or food deliveries. For example, one of the grants we made through our Horses First Fund, which is our emergency fund, was to the Sam Houston Racetrack Chaplaincy, where it's a small organization, volunteer run, but they had a population of backstretch workers that needed assistance. They were essentially stuck there at the track when there was no racing. So many of them didn't have transportation to leave, so they needed food. So we supported that organization with a grant so they could go on and serve that community. Similar scenario with the Backside Learning Center here in Kentucky at Churchill Downs. We supported them with an emergency grant. They were doing some grocery deliveries, things like that, before the backstretch workers were allowed on the backside of Churchill Downs. So, and then, yeah, you mentioned New York, they were hit pretty hard. One of our grant recipients is BESS, the Belmont Employee Service Team, and they provide medical services for backstretch workers there at Belmont Park and all NYRA tracks. So we were able to support them because, of course, they certainly saw an increase in what they needed.
I see that the TCA has an app called Como. Could you expound on that a little bit and for our viewers, and maybe give them some information as to it might be a pertinent piece of information they would need during this crisis?
Sure, thank you for asking. Como is a new project for us, relatively new. We're actually still kind of in the launching phase of it, but it's a partnership with Godolphin. One of our largest supporters, of course, is Godolphin, and Godolphin developed this app. And what it is, it's for backstretch workers. So if you have an Android or an iPhone, you're able to download Como. In the iStore, for example, you would type in Como resources you need, download the app, and then you'll see data that has been populated by either the racetrack chaplain at a particular racetrack or a nonprofit organization working on behalf of the backstretch workers there at the track. And you can look at the app for resources that you may need. Let's say you're a backstretch worker, you've just arrived here in Kentucky, maybe from New York, and you need to find a dentist. You could go to Como and you would see a list of dental services that have been essentially provided by a trusted resource on the racetrack, which would be the racetrack chaplain. So it's a really handy way for backstretch workers to kind of access everything and in one app to kind of corral all of the great resources that are out there for our industry, and there are a lot of them, and Como really successfully kind of pulls that all in together there in the palm of your hand.
I mean, it sounds phenomenal. I mean, I'm sure that Godolphin needs, anyone in the horse industry knows who they are, and it's obviously a debt of gratitude owed to them. And just kind of to piggyback on that, the TCA has done quite a bit for the local horsemen here in West Virginia. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I guess probably April or so, right in the midst of the coronavirus earlier this year, Georgiana at the Charlestown Aftercare organization reached out to me and said, I have this idea about establishing essentially a feed program for the horsemen there at Charlestown Racetrack. We all know that like most horsemen were negatively impacted by what was happening with the racetrack shutdowns and whatnot. And I said, I think that's a great idea. At that point, we hadn't done anything along those lines before. But she then put me in touch with Maria at the HBPA. And Maria and I, kind of talked through what we wanted to accomplish. And essentially, I asked Maria to put a proposal together for us. And she put together this dynamite proposal for the feed assistance program. I took the proposal to TCA's Horses First Fund Committee, And again, that's our emergency fund. It's kind of like almost a Red Cross for the thoroughbred industry. It was started back in 2016 and has provided aid to large-scale neglect cases. We use the fund for the for the horses in Puerto Rico during Hurricane Maria, when the track was just ravaged by the hurricane. We sent some assistance to San Luis Rey Downs when the fires occurred out there in California. So this fund, started by Ellen J. Foxwoods, has just been fantastic for these emergency situations. So anyway, I took Maria's proposal to the Horses First Fund committee. We reviewed it. We said, yes, this really, fits within the guidelines of the fund and meets the fund's mission. And we were able to implement her proposal, and essentially, she went through and put together something really that's need-based. We partnered with the Southern States there in near the Charlestown racetrack and set up an account with them where Maria would provide the names of the eligible trainers to Southern States. The trainers could go in and based on their need allocation, they would be able to receive some feed from Southern States.
Erin, I can't thank you enough for appearing on Horsepower with us this afternoon. It looks like the Thoroughbred Charities of America is in wonderful hands with you at the helm. And it truly is a horseman helping horsemen. Thank you so much for appearing this afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on Horsepower this afternoon. Our guest is Karen Engel of Triple Crown Feed. Before we get to some of the pertinent points about COVID-19 and their association with local horsemen, I wanted to just discuss a little bit of Karen's background and some of the services that Triple Crown provides and some of the jurisdictions that they actually deliver to.
Well, thank you so much. It's a great opportunity to be here. And so a little bit about me. My background is, I actually started with Southern States over 30 years ago and was a feed sales tech rep and managed a store and had ran a fertilizer operation as well. But my passion was equine, and so I was fortunate enough to be able to focus on the equine industry and did that for over 20 years. And of course, when I worked for Southern States, we were fortunate that we had a joint venture at the time with Triple Crown Nutrition. So I actually sold Triple Crown horse feed back in those days as well. So and so that is kind of where I actually have had many years of experience in the equine industry. And then with Triple Crown, they cover the whole United States at the present moment. And we have other manufacturers that manufacture our feed for us. And we are an equine only horse feed company focusing on feed as well as forages. So that's where we kind of, our focus is, like I said, across the whole United States. The company has Dr. Bill Vandergriff as our nutritionist. Dr. Vandergriff, which actually is the one that formulates all of our feed, he has a vast background in equine in the industry, not only from the nutrition aspect as a PhD, but he also is a trainer, and his passion was with racing. And that's kind of where actually Triple Crown as a company started in the racing industry, the horse racing industry, because of our oat company. But then, of course, we have ventured into other aspects of focusing on the well-being of the horse with a high fiber type of feed, because horses are grazers, with the beet pulp based feed and all the additional elements that go into having a good healthy horse. So that's kind of a little bit about kind of Triple Crown and myself.
Well, it does appear, as you've alluded to, that Triple Crown has a very scientific approach to their feed program. And could you kind of just talk a little bit about the COVID-19 virus and its impact on horsemen throughout the United States, which, as we know, the company services literally through 50 states?
Yes, sir. And what's unique with the COVID-19 is the fact that, yes, all aspects of the equine industry have been impacted, but some more so than others because of just the nature of the business. You know, when you know, you're an owner of horses, you still have to feed them, you still have to take care of them. And so those aspects don't change. What's changed with the COVID-19 is the ability to generate income. And that's really been tough for some of these specific disciplines because shows aren't going on. They aren't able to have lessons. Racing isn't going on, but you still have athletes, equine athletes that you're still having to keep in training and keeping in good condition. And, you know, all the aspects of that does not change. What's changed is the ability to generate income. So it's really, really had a huge impact on the equine industry. In some areas more so than others, just because of the location of where you live. You know, COVID has definitely impacted, like I said, all aspects of the equine industry, but like I said, some areas more so than others.
I love how you refer to the horses as an equine athlete, because that's exactly what they are. And I noticed the staff here at Horsepower has told me that the Triple Crown feed has gone up above and beyond in helping horsemen here at Charlestown Races and Slots. I know that you have donated more than 39,000, that's correct, 39,000 pounds of feed. If you could expound on that story a little bit, I know our viewers would love to hear about it.
Well, you know, the equine industry in Charlestown Races is very near and dear to our heart. You know, they have been strong supporters of Triple Crown from the very beginning. And, you know, when they reached out during this COVID-19 with some of the, you know, struggles that a lot of the horsemen were having and the concerns, you know, I was able to call Rob Daughtery, which is our owner of our company. We are still a family-owned company, and talked with Rob. And of course, Rob's been to Charlestown. He loves the Charlestown races. He's been to the West Virginia Breeders' Classic. And he was very, very open to saying, you know, let's see what we can do. And we were able to put together a tractor-trailer load of feed to get to those horsemen to help them during this difficult time. Because like I said, you know, those trainers are really having a hard time. And we wanted to be able to support them as much as we possibly could. Like I said, they've supported us and helped us to grow the Triple Crown brand. You know, because of them, you know, that's where part of the reason why we are where we are today. And so it was our opportunity to support them for supporting us.
I know it's a wonderful story, and it's a wonderful quid pro quo relationship that you guys have. I know the local horsemen, and I talk to them on a daily basis. You know, they were and are significantly impacted by COVID-19. How did it actually come about? What was the actual, you know, if you could lay out an agenda, how this happened, where you guys were able to get 39,000 pounds of feed to local horsemen who I would have to say were probably in need?
Yes, I would agree. So, you know, like I said, when they reached out and said that, you know, they were having some challenges, and that there was, you know, the fact that there wasn't any opportunity for generating revenue. They still had the horses there. They were still training. You know, like I said, I picked up the phone and talked to Rob, and he says, well, Karen, let's see what we can do. And, you know, he was very instrumental in making that happen because, like I said, he has a, you know, a soft spot in his heart for Charlestown Racetrack because, like I said, they literally helped us to be the company we are today.
Well, I hope we can see you and Rob here for the October West Virginia Breeders' Classics. And I can't thank you enough for everything you and the company has done. And I sincerely hope that someday horsemen here will be able to pay you back, because 39,000 pounds of feed is a lot, and I know it went to a very, very worthy cause. I can't thank you enough for coming on today, Karen, and I can't thank Triple Crown enough for their efforts.
Well, thank you. And like I said, I really, truly appreciate the opportunity to be able to service these accounts and help them out as much as possible. And again, I look forward to being able to see some of them, hopefully in October, face-to-face as well, and thank them for allowing us to help them.
Hopefully we'll see some of the Triple Crown recipients of this feed in the winner's circle. Thank you, Karen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You do.
Good afternoon and welcome to Horsepower this
afternoon's guest is the esteemed Maria Catignani. She is the Executive Director of the Charlestown Horsemen's Benevolent and Protective Association. That's a tough title there. Maria, great to have you on the show this morning. I know you put in some tireless hours to benefit the horsemen. And, you know, this afternoon we had the ability to talk to some people that the HBPA has worked in conjunction with to really help the horsemen through some tough times in here. We just had Erin Crady here from the TCA. She talked to us about how instrumental it was in getting assistance and getting together with you as an entity to make several things happen here at Charlestown. If you could expound on some of the things that you guys did in conjunction with one another, it would be just wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. First, let me say that we need to thank a few people about this whole program. We, of course, need to thank Erin Crady of Thoroughbred Charities Horses First Fund. We also need to thank Eric Zimney and Georgiana Pardo from the Aftercare Charlestown program. Those two people were instrumental in helping put us together with Erin. But ultimately, yes, I did develop a program that was a feed assistance program that provided free bags of grain to trainers based on the number of stalls that trainers had here on the grounds and an earnings criteria as of the day of our shutdown. What I did was I devised a metric that provided a one-time distribution of up to 10 bags of feed to each trainer that met the criteria. Based on the TCA donation, we were able to provide assistance to 2/3 of the trainers who are stabled here on the grounds, which equated to 1/3 of the horses that are on the grounds. Part of that whole program required that TCA had to partner with a local feed supply store, and we were lucky enough to have Southern States of Ranson partner with TCA. Southern States offered some special pricing to TCA, and ultimately the program provided 660 bags or 16.5 tons of grain to horsemen here at Charlestown.
It's amazing. I mean, I know the HBPA office and I frequent it. I know you guys, you know, it's an open door policy here and you guys see horsemen on a regular basis. I'm sure that there have been other programs that you guys have been instrumental in helping horsemen through these difficult times, especially because of the COVID-19. Could you talk a little bit about those, Maria?
Sure. Actually, again, thanks to Eric Zimney of Hollywood Casino and Races and his relationship with Triple Crown. He helped us secure a truckload, tractor-trailer load of forage from Triple Crown. And our point of contact for that program with Triple Crown was Karen Engel, who's wonderful to work with. Again, they provided 990 bags of forage. We distributed those in 2 days. That was nearly 20 tons of product, bagged product. Each trainer, this program was for each trainer who had stalls on the ground, and they received up to 20 bags based upon the number of stalls they had. And here we have to give a special thanks to Hollywood Casino employee Warren Kogel, who was incredible help. He was just absolutely wonderful. He helped us handle all of the skids of forage. He helped with the distribution through those 2 days. One day was really, the weather was awful, but my help was, you know, I was out there, but my other help was Georgiana Pardo from Aftercare Charlestown and my office assistant, Darla Gage. And they were both an incredible help, helping get that product, you know, on everybody's truckloads and getting them out of there, getting those bags out of there.
Hey, listen, on a day-to-day basis, I think everybody in the office here, Darla does a phenomenal job, as well as you. Can't thank Eric Zimney enough for his help. Could you talk a little bit about maybe the food drive that also was instrumental in helping people on the backside?
Sure. Okay, so of course we have a chaplaincy that does have a food closet. But when we realized what was happening, the board immediately said that they wanted an interim food bank and they wanted us to distribute food from here in the office. We did that. We solicited donations from members of our community, the horse racing community, and they provided enough funds that we could pack 576 bags of food, which provided over $2,000 a meal, 2,000 meals for the horsemen. And we distributed those bags over 8 weeks. There was no requirement. If you just came to the door, if you said you needed help, we distributed bags, and we did that for 8 weeks. You know, I can't express enough to you through this whole process what it's like to have somebody look you in the face and have tears in their eyes and just say thank you so much. You know, whether it was for the food or it was for the forage or the grain, people were just so grateful. You know, and it just puts focus on how much the horsemen are willing to help each other. Something that happened with the track kitchen, you know, through all of this, we had one benefactor who, for the last 4 weeks before we went back to racing, he donated $1,000 a week to the track kitchen vendor so that they could provide free and reduced meals provide costs that were free or reduced for the people who needed help. They couldn't afford to buy their lunch. And then, you know, the track kitchen vendor, who it is Brenda and Jim Wilhelm, they've been just absolutely wonderful.
Maria, we're running out of time, but if we could implore you to stick around for the next episode, we'd like you to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and its impact on the local horse industry.
Okay.
It's a West Virginia classic, the Gulf Tournament, the Gala, and the state's top thoroughbreds vying for the chance to be named West Virginia's best. The West Virginia Breeders' Classics. Breeding, training, racing. A stable of champions. Taylor Mountain Farm is a proud supporter of horsepower.